So by the way, this is going to be put up on our YouTube channel, so this is going to be recorded.
I'll leave video, just in case you didn't know.
So first of all, what we're talking about, how to utilize your prairie plant, flowers and so forth, it's easy to do if you follow a very few practices and principles. So the first thing is selecting the right container. So I have all these different kind of containers up here. I'm just real quick going to go through them because the container needs to fit the plants, the flowers. So if you got gladiolas, you need a big container like this. If you have violets or sweet williams or lily of the valley, a little container like this is what you need. These kind of containers are pretty if you've got some roses, but this is not a very stable container and it's going to tip over. I don't recommend do that. If you have just a single bud or some shooting stars or things like that, you can use a bud vase. But and this is called a rose bowl, and it's actually if you've got some wild roses or hybrid roses and you just want to show those up, pick something like this. The key to containers for what we're doing tonight is you want to have a container that's really stable on the bottom, it's not going to tip over, and it has a relatively narrow mouth, because then you don't have to worry so much about the plants falling out of the vases. And actually one of the very best containers for what we're doing with wildflowers are just old pickle jars. Plastic pickle jars are the best because they got a really flat bottom on them and a narrow top. And so save all your plastic pickle jars and use them. The classic vase, and you probably all have these sitting around from flowers that came from flowers that somebody sent you from a flower shop, is the old, what do you call this? Ginger jar vase.
Oh.
And it's perfect for this kind of thing because it holds a lot of water, it's got a narrow mouth, and it's got a nice stable flat bottom. So also don't be afraid to use household items like pitchers, make really good vases for wildflowers, and really anything you got around the house. But main thing is to make sure that, like I said, the vase is appropriate for the size and bulk of the flowers that you are using. Next principle is you need to practice what I call floral hygiene. That does not mean washing your hands after you've been in the garden. It means preparing your plants, your flowers properly so that they will last when you put them in water in a vase. So, just get these out of the way.
It's not on you. Is Goodwill a good place to pick up vases too?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I used to have a whole collection of like 30 of those rose bowls that I used for the Niagara Wetlands event, and I finally got rid of them all. I didn't have any place to keep them. So what I mean by floral hygiene is, first of all, make sure that your vases are clean. Wash them out with just hot soap and water. You don't need to sterilize them or anything. But don't leave old bacteria or dead dirt or dead leaves or anything in your vases. They need to be clean. Bacteria is your enemy. So when I talk about floral hygiene, we're talking about things to do to reduce creating bacteria. The second is you need to remove the lower leaves of any stems that are going to be below the water line. So see, all these stems have to come off because you don't want stems sitting in water because they will rot, it will form bacteria, the bacteria will clog up the stems and the flowers will die. So you don't want any leaves below the water line. That includes thorns, which are modified leaves, stipules, you know what stipules are? I don't know if I can see it here. Or anything that's below the water line, because you do not want your water to be contaminated by rotting leaves. Then once you've put your arrangement together, you need to change your water every couple days, especially if it looks like it's starting to get cloudy. But if it's getting cloudy, that means there's bacteria in the water. And if it gets really bad, you want to wash off your stems and recut the stems. But rinse out all that gunk, put fresh water in, and that'll last a lot longer.
Jerry, as far as water goes,
No, you don't need to have hot water, you don't need to have distilled water, you just need plain old tap water.
okay,
And if you get those little packets of Floral Life that come with a bouquet from the grocery store, go ahead and use them, that's fine. But some people put pennies or bleach and aspirin in their water. That's all. That's all. Nonsense. So, and then the last thing is remove the flowers as they fade and either replace them with new flowers or just leave what else is there. And it'll last, enjoy it much longer. So remove anything that's faded or died. Next principle that I advocate is don't worry about the colors. Nature is colorful. Mix all the colors you want. You can't not, colors in nature do not clash. Now some things work better together. Complementary colors like purple and yellow give an extra pop to a bouquet. That's a pop of color. Red and green, so forth. Complementary colors are good to use if you really want to set off your bouquets. And then I think simple bouquets. A bouquet is really kind of a nice round. Are the best, the easiest to do. Linda's going to give you some design advice, and you can get as fancy as you want. But don't be afraid of trying just some simple things, like doing some grasses with all those lower leaves. You're showing off a particular flower or plant and give it a little artistic look to it. Don't be afraid to try different things. So the next practice is selecting what flowers work best in arrangements and then getting those flowers conditioned so they'll last in your house. So this morning I went out and picked all these flowers from my yard and so forth. This is spiderwort. This morning, it was just gorgeous blue, seas of blue flowers. But spiderwort flowers last half a day.
Yeah.
So, although these might look interesting, because it's still kind of interesting to me in a bouquet, and probably some of the buds will open. These just don't last long enough, so don't pick them. Leave them in the yard. Things like the milkweed and anything that has latex sap, like the milkweeds, they really need to have special, they need to be treated special by either burning or somehow sizing so the sap doesn't leak out. And otherwise they'll wilt. You can see how this one, even though it's been in water all day, it's slowly wilting. These are beautiful, but they're not good cut flowers. Daylilies, as the name applies, they only last a day.
Will the other ones open up?
The other ones will open up, so you can try them,
Gotta wait
but
out. Okay.
you're gonna take a risk of not
Yeah.
not having anything. Things like fleabane. This is pretty, and it's pretty hardy, and it'll last in a bouquet, but all these little petals, they just fall off after a few days, and you've got a mess all over. So just beware if you use that. Another one that's really pretty right now, but are the wild roses, but they do not last. Now this one has a bud coming out, so maybe by the time this one, this might last a couple days. This one will come out, but I wouldn't. If you want to, have a little bouquet of wild roses on your desk or something, fine. Go for it, but don't expect it to last very long. You can definitely use woody plants. This is the wild hydrangea. We sell that at our fall sales, green shrub sales.
And the lilacs would be woody.
Lilacs are woody.
Okay.
The real woody stuff like lilacs, you need to treat the stems so that they take up more water by either peeling off the outside bark or smashing them
Those ones you can hammer too.
with a hammer to open them up. But they'll last. They're worth having. I don't know what that is. Firecracker plant, some people call it.
Oh, lead
Lead plant. It's coming into bloom right now on the 4th of July. And you can use that in a flower arrangement. But again, you need to be aware that the woody plants need special treatment so that they take up enough water. And I hear the thunder.
We're in a good place.
So if you want to have early spring wildflowers, violets are great. Just, they'll last. Just use a small vase. But most of the early spring woodland wildflowers, don't pick them. They won't last in a vase in flower. Don't forget the roadside weeds. Some of them are really interesting and pretty. This is motherwort. I'm all the time digging it out of my garden. But it's in the mint family. It's got really pretty little lavender leaves. And it'll last. It'll do really well in a bouquet. So some of the...
Jerry?
Yep.
Fall sunflower, I've used that and I don't do what you say, keep it watered. And what I found is that it will dry and you can use it all winter. You can spray it with floral spray and that'll keep it going. But it's one of those plants that just don't wilt. It just hardens and the petals stay yellow.
So I was going to just kind of go, Some of the sunflowers, all of the sunflowers, including fall sunflower, are really good for cutting. All the rudbeckias, black-eyed Susan, sweet black-eyed Susan, brown-eyed Susans, all the rudbeckias are great, especially sweet black-eyed Susan. It makes really good. The stems are, I mean, they have really long stems. You can make all kinds of bouquets out of them. And they are really stiff and they really last a long time. I use them all the time.
How about a coreopsis?
Coreopsis is fine. Now they're very tender, short stems, so you need to get a vase of coreopsis. A vase like this full of coreopsis would be just fine. I have a list. Goldenrods. I plant goldenrods specifically for cutting, and I leave my early goldenrods. I always leave 3 or 4 patches of early goldenrod so that I have them like for the fair, for the August fairs, because they are beautiful and they're in arrangements, and of course the bees. Asters in fall, they're starting to come in bloom right now. Monarda, of course, is great. My Monarda is just starting to bloom. I picked these at work today. We were debating whether to buy some compound mums so you could have something that was like Monarda, but we got some of yarrow instead. Rattlesnake master, wild quinine, flowering spurge, the vervains. The vervains are really beautiful in bouquets. Black-eyed Susan, I mentioned already. Thistles, not Canadian thistle. I guess you could put it in a bouquet, but any of the native thistles, watch out for the thorns, but they are beautiful. And like I said, don't overlook the roadside weeds. One of my favorite roadside weeds right now, because I think they're just so interesting, is curly dock. Now before it turns brown, which you can use it later in the season in bouquets, but before it turns brown, this is beautiful, beautiful chartreuse green. So use it, enjoy it.
Then all go see.
That's what
Pick it and you get it on the roadside.
So
And Dame's Rock, and pick that too.
Yeah, pick that too.
the best time to pick go out and cut your flowers is in the cool of the evening or the cool in the morning. And that's when they're going to be most turgid. That's when they're not going to wilt right away. If you cut them in the middle of the day, they're just going to, they're rapidly transpiring. And you don't want to do that. And then immediately plunge them into cold water. So I went out this morning and picked all these buckets and just threw them in there. And then let them sit in that water for a few hours or overnight to make sure that they're actually going to be okay. If they're not going to work, like the milkweed, they'll tell you. By the time you're ready to use them, they'll be wilted. You just throw them away. Like I said before, and I can't overemphasize this, you need to remove all of the lower leaves, and I usually do that right when I'm picking them. I just, and I don't have to deal with it. But also, like Monarda is very susceptible to mildew. So you either don't use them or you pull off all the diseased or damaged leaves. They're not pretty. So just take close look at them, and like this one, this is really covered with mildew. All of these are mildewed. I would either pull off all the leaves or not use them. So you don't want damaged leaves that have been damaged by insects or that are diseased. And that's really all the basic principles. Well, one other thing I wanted to say is, before I turn this over to Linda, is even though you might pick the right container, sometimes it's helpful to have some kind of a wire or frog or even pebbles or marbles or things in your vase to kind of help stabilize the stems as you put them in, especially if you're using taller stems, things. So I use chicken wire because you can also use a floral foam, which you can buy at Michael's or Kmart. I don't like floral foam because it holds water, but it really doesn't, you can't change the water or things like that. I like chicken wire the best, and you just wad up a little piece of chicken wire, squeeze it down in there, and then that gives you a place for your stems to go in.
And stay more upright.
It'll help you now. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but so that's kind of the basic things to get started. Is the containers, selecting the right flowers and plants, and don't overlook grasses. This is orchard grass. It's not a native, but I think it's pretty. So don't go over grasses. So I'm going to turn this over to Linda.
I just have a quick question. So
Sure.
I saw you when you like tuck the chicken wire into the container. Do you find that works better than putting it like around the top? Like I've even seen people do like hardware caulk around the top and then screw the lid back on the jar.
That works too. That's a type of a frog.
Yeah, I didn't know
And
if
you
there was like
can,
a
but you
preferred
get those
method.
at Michael's and different places.
Yeah.
Anything that helps stabilize the stems of the flowers when you're working with them.
Well, and I was going to mention, I often like to use very wide open containers, especially if I'm putting it on like a centerpiece on the table where I want to keep it low and
Right.
wide. And then I just put clear Scotch tape across and make a grid. And
That works.
then it holds them nicely, and it can be a big wide open container and you don't see it. Or floral tape would work too, but I have Scotch tape in the kitchen drawer, so.
Or you can, if it's big enough, you can put little glass containers in there
There you go.
Yeah.
too. I do that all the time. There's all kinds of tricks. So,
Thank you.
Okay,
take it away.
so you covered some of these things. I'm just gonna be more of the design and why you're doing it, where you're gonna put it, that kind of thing, the colors and all that sort of thing. So in floral design, there's like 4 things that you wanna deal with. First of all, what's the purpose? What are you using this flower arrangement for? Are you gonna put it on your dining room table? Are you gonna hang it on the wall? Are you gonna use it for dinner? You wanna be able to see around it? Do you want something for the hall table? So it's kind of like the purpose of where you're doing it. Think about that. As you're doing that, you usually have this rule of, they call it rule of thirds. I've got a couple examples here. And these are artificials. They're not obviously out of the gardens. But when you talk about the rule of thirds, what you want to do to make it balanced, and Jerry was talking about what fits where, if you take the container and you do, the containers are like 1.5 times the height is generally what you want to do, and the same thing with the width. So here's one height, here's another height, and here's a half a height. So it kind of gives you a balance, and it's in scale then with your container. As far as the rule of thirds goes, if I'm going to put this on a table, I want 1/3 of the table open over here, 1/3 over here, and 1/3 for my floral, because it kind of balances it. Same thing with the wall. If you're going to hang something on the wall, if you got like a 6-foot wall, use a 2-foot space in the middle, and then you've got 2 feet on either side. So it kind of just gives you some balance. Let's see what else. The colors. If you look at your color chart, Jerry talked about this a little bit. And you can do whatever you want. Nature, like you said, doesn't care about the colors. It's varied. But if you're trying to match something in a room, you can do different things. Like this would be considered give these right, analogous. So it's colors that are together on the color chart, like what you've got in your handout. So you've got your oranges, your yellows, your reds, they're all together kind of on the color wheel. This one is called monochromatic. Ooh. This is all white. So it's all one color, right? And again, here's the height of the container, up to here, so 1.5 times. So it kind of stays in balance. So that's another thing to think about. Trying to see what Jerry covered. Oh, the other thing is like the textures vary. So in this you've got big flowers, little flowers, filler flowers. Generally when you're starting, when I start an arrangement, I want to figure out, all right, am I going to make a round arrangement? Am I going to do something oval? This one is kind of triangular, so you've got your points here, here, here. So you put those flowers in first, it kind of gives you a framework to work around. And then if you want to have a focal point, there's this big huge flower here. And then from there you just start filling in the other spaces with smaller and smaller flowers. And if you run out of flowers, or you can use foliage, like I've got, this is kind of a fall arrangement, so there's foliage in here. Same thing with this one, there's different sizes of the flowers. The main big ones are these Gerber daisies, and then we move down into the lilies. And then we've got these other little tinier flowers, and then the ivy kind of fills in the holes. So it kind of makes your eye go around the arrangement. And the same thing here. Focal point, you go out to the outsides, and then you're seeing the stuff on the inside. The different shapes of the flowers. You've got round flowers. They're good for filling, or the big round flowers are good for focal point. The long, skinny stuff, the linear ones, that will give you eye direction. So here's the top, here's the sides, and it's kind of pointy, so it kind of gives you direction. Your eye wants to follow that then. And again, the different forms. This is kind of a triangular one. This one's kind of more rounded. So it just depends on what look you're looking for in your room, in your space. And Jerry kind of touched on this to hold the flowers in place. You can use the grid like you were talking with the tape. You can use your chicken wire. You can use the frogs that you put in the bottom. They have all the little pins in, and you stick the stems into that. You can also use just a grid of greens. I've done that before, where you take just the vase and you put all your greens in, and so you end up with this like grid of all these stems from the greenery, and then you can put your flowers in and place them where you want them to go. Let's see. I think we kind of covered most of that. This last sheet, I found this online, and I thought this was kind of handy for our purposes. It's all about natives. It's an Illinois native plant guide. It not only tells you the bloom time of the flowers, so when these are going to be around, but it also gives you kind of a photo of each one, and you can kind of figure out, here's a round flower, here's a linear flower, here's something that might be a filler, it's a little smaller. So if you look at the flowers that we've got here, we've got baby's breath, which is real fine. That would be a good filler. Your grasses, again, those are very linear, so you can get the lines going that you want. Your daisies and the yarrow are more like the filler points to fill in the rest of the arrangement. So, again, it's all up to you where you want to use it, what colors you want to do, what's growing in your yard if you're using the live flowers. So I think that's pretty much all I've got. If there any questions? Fiona?
Yes, what order do you start assembling the plants?
We're going to do that now.
Okay.
Who's going to do that?
Good question.
So
Like where your mind is.
what you can do is to go and get a vase, a jar. We just have a bunch of jars with water in it. They're out there on the table. And come back, you're going to do this work. Find a spot, spread out. Wherever there's shears and wire there, you can take your spot. And then we're going to walk you through step by step. Can I read you?
That's my task.
I just want to give everybody 2 of these stamps. Maybe 3, 'cause there's some.
You might want to put it, yeah, I'm gonna throw mine back. Bump it in.
Anybody want some extra yard?
My daughter.
Did you not get any?
Jerry, I have always had my stems underwater.
They say it's better to cut your stems underwater, or to recut them underwater, and the reason for that is so you don't get air in the stems, and the air could block the uptake of water. I never do that, and it never matters. So get your wires and your vase. You can do that. You start with that. The first thing we're going to do is put in the foliage. Now this is, these are foliage from wild indigo or baptisia. Now this is actually the blue baptisia, not the white or the pink baptisia. But the white baptisia flowers are, foliage is really good. It's very hardy, it's pretty, and it works well in this arrangement. So,
Is your white blossomed already and everything?
Yes,
what?
Your white, right now, okay,
Oh, my white indigo, yes.
okay.
So, first thing is,
I'll have to look out.
you got clear, everybody has clippers on the table, or you brought your own. Figure out how, like Linda was saying, how this is gonna fit into your vase. These don't need to be up high. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create a nest or a framework for the rest of the bouquet. And remember to take off anything that's going to be below the water line. Just put them in. Yes, the foliage.
And why was there?
So cut them down, make them shorter.
About one height of your container. This is just gonna be the greenery.
Oh, ice.
You're using the greenery, yes, you're using the greenery as kind of to create a nest for the rest of the flowers. So they need to go down
Pretty far.
pretty far in your container.
If your container's like this, take like one height, no more than one height of your container above the container.
Okay, that's helpful too.
Yeah. It's telling you to work right in there.
Don't be afraid to cut the stems. Now,
So remember, if it's below the water, it doesn't.
so look at mine. This is kind of about what you want it to look like.
See how the container is at the top of the leaves are about to be up
Yeah,
this.
bring them down, make them shorter. Cut it even further. They should be.
So this is and one
Below the rim of the. So everything else is gonna go, is gonna nest in this.
take another like 2 inches.
Okay. The next thing Linda talked about, what did you call it? To establish your height and your width of your boat.
Yeah, the triangle is like the outer perimeter of your plant.
The outer perimeter of how high and how wide. So take your culver's roots and figure, measure those and see how high you're going to make this arrangement. How much taller than the base should they be?
1.5 times.
1.5 times your base. And this is why you need to have that. That's the wonder of chicken wire. Now you could put a couple of these in here if you have an extra one. And then the next, what you need to do is establish how wide it's going to be.
Depends on what where you're gonna put it, if you want it.
If it's going to be in a dining room table, you can have it really wide, like this.
You got a smaller table,
But
again, just like 1/3.
If just your kitchen table, you're going to want it like this. So just eyeball it.
Can get into
So you can cut off flower part and get clean off the leaves and everything and
It's kind of narrow.
put those in. And then you can use these buds also, just kind of fill in. And remember, always remember that nature is three-dimensional. It is not flat, so you want your bouquets to be three-dimensional. That means that you have flowers on all sides. Sure, just go ahead and take them. Anybody else want more? Here's some.
then you're
Okay,
area.
perfect.
They just started blooming this week, so.
Got lucky.
So, you've got your height. Created your height. You created how wide the parameters of your bouquet. If you have any questions, that's what Linda is for.
Are we having fun yet?
Yeah. There's a more, like I said,
Have a narrow top, so it's like.
yeah, it's hard to get them all in there.
Yeah.
That's good. Here, see how this is all the way up here? Because this is your top, this is your wildflower, so you want to take this piece and make it a little shorter. So bring it down about here.
Okay, if you're ready to start,
No, good.
what we're gonna do then is fill in the empty spaces. And we'll start with the mountain mint. And again,
What about our tall grasses?
this,
Later.
so you fill in the empty spaces with filler. And you can use the mountain mint, makes good filler. Or you can also use the,
About say how is it, okay, Susan?
so yeah, put them in, what's the height of the filler? You don't want it higher than your center ones, you don't want it wider than your outside ones, you want it to be in the spaces in between, so that you're filling in. Some people talk about, with flower arranging that you have to have a thriller, a stiller, a filler, and something else. And so what we're doing now is filling in the space.
What is that?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
You're all done. Yeah, you don't need to worry. I mean, this is for your own enjoyment. You don't need to be Martha Stewart.
We're not there yet.
So after you put in the mountain mint, you kind of created a fill in, then you can use the baby's breath to fill in the rest. And baby's breath is, I mean, obviously it's very delicate. You can use flowery spurge, you can use lots of other things.
There's a little bit more baby's breath up here if you want some.
Again, be sure to take all the leaves off below the water.
So which one of these things did you purchase?
Nothing, everything came out of our old, out of our yard.
Wow.
Even this, Jerry?
Even the grass?
This.
That's a
Ditch.
prairie cordgrass.
Oh, is it really?
Something between.
And then the little pops of contrasting color, just stick them down in there, wherever you want. No, today the RO, the probably, we only had so much, so I would, normally they talk about everything in threes. Japanese flower arranging, that's not true, but in Western flower arranging, they're in threes. If you only have two, that's fine for now. You can go home and pick some purple home flowers. So obviously, you got bigger vases, you got more flowers, make it bigger, but the principles are still the same. You create your framework with your tall flowers, and how wide you want them, you fill that in with other flowers. You have linear elements, you have round elements, you have
It is, it's so popular, really.
the mountain wind is basically mass. It's not, obviously, each flower is not in itself all that pretty, but together it creates mass and form. And the piece of resistance is using, in this case, and I really like using prairie cordgrass in arrangements. It's so elegant. Put one or two in if that's all you want, and it creates an interesting line. Or you can put more in.
It's also a make your arrangement bigger, and it appears bigger because you got this grass coming out farther out of it, and almost can almost double the size of your arrangement.
Without taking up any real space. And
I think it's kind of pretty. Yeah.
prairie cordgrass,
Different look.
in the fall, or in the middle of summer, switchgrass is really
Oh, that's
wonderful.
pretty, that's fun, yeah.
And it not only is a filler, but it's also, it has nice, the leaves have a nice leaf.
Oh my God.
So use the prairie grass. Big blue stem, the seed, the heads of big blue stem are interesting, and you can use those, but I don't use it that much.
Might have to, hash it.
Well, it's a milkweed, so it have that.
Oh, we have that milky.
Yeah.
Couldn't you just burn it or singe it or something?
Said burn it or smash it?
You smash them.
So everybody turn towards the videographer and hold up your bouquet.
Oh, yeah. Did you
And smile. So you can, these principles apply to any cut flowers, whether it's a bouquet of cut flowers that you purchase at the grocery store, or your grandkids brought you for Mother's Day, or whatever's in your yard. And whether it's wildflowers or zinnias are wonderful as cut flowers. Cosmoses, you need to bring them in and enjoy them. Put them on your kitchen table where you're going to see them all the time, or in a prominent place next to your TV, or even in the bathroom, on a windowsill. So enjoy the flowers that you have, whether they're wildflowers or
It's the texture.
garden flowers or weeds. Don't be afraid to pick a couple of other tips. When you do put the regular flowers into the house, do not put them in a sunny spot, because the sun will dry them out. Don't put them in a spot where there's a lot of air movement, like don't put them in front of an air conditioner or a fan, for the same reason they'll dry out. You put them in a cool spot, but other than that, you can put them anywhere. and enjoy.